in the room. But at the same time, it's really challenging to attract those investments because there is a need to get a stream of a pipeline of bankable projects that will be doable. And the other issue that I think is being faced now is really the grid. Now we are in that situation where after years of underinvestment in the grid worldwide, but of course in Africa took a toll in those decreasing investments. So if I take the example of Morocco, we've been quite far in our electrification program. We have more than 99.8% of our population that is electrified. However, we are now facing that issue of the last mile and the quality of service that you provide first to the last 10%. And of course, those 0.2% that are left are the most frustrated, the poorest, and they want to have access to this sort of energy. So the traditional model of building large plants, renewables or others, and linking them to a grid that has suffered from years of underinvestment just doesn't work. And we have that conviction now in Morocco that we need to build in agile business models to enable the investors that are, of course, very happy to come invest in Morocco to have a pipeline of projects with different sizes, with, of course, the guarantee, of course, to be able to either inject into the grid or to create an ecosystem of mini-grids in those decentralized areas. So this is in a nutshell how we are tackling the electrification challenge that Morocco and other countries in Africa are facing.
Good. Michael, perhaps I can ask you, you work in the finance industry, what needs to be done?
It's really a requirement to invest in it. I mean, last week I announced in Parliament that we need to invest roughly between $1 and $2.5 billion per year, and a large chunk of that is going to reinforcing the grid to enable the penetration of renewables down the road. My issue with that is it's not the amount that is an issue. And if you allow me for a second, I'll put my hat of President of the United Nations Assembly for the Environment that Morocco has the privilege of chairing until next year. The issue today is not to have the numbers to add up. It's really that flow of investment that has to go, especially when it comes to the grid, with no interruption every year. It requires a lot of trust, of course, on both sides. But in the case of Africa and most African countries, there is no time to wait, because you have 600 million people who don't have access to any modern form of energy, let alone electricity. And these are countries that are the most vulnerable to climate change, to biodiversity loss, to environmental issues and pollution, which are tackling their day-to-day sources of income in large informal sectors. So I think trying to get the numbers to add up, I'm sorry to say, it's going to be a bit a waste of time. We all know where the money will have to flow. We are making sure, at least in Morocco, that the regulatory framework is there, that the fiscal terms are there, and that the ability of our partners, equity and debt, are enabled to get access to those risk-adjusted returns, because I think that's the key word. If we understand every word of those three terms, risk-adjusted returns, in reinforcing the grid and making sure that you are thinking more creatively about the business model of producing, transporting, and consuming electricity, I think we would be able to win this energy transition. But as I said, we're not in 1810 when we had the first oil development. We're not in 1946 after the Second World War. We're not in 1979. We are in 2023. And we have 600 million people in Africa who are craving access to modern forms of energy. Plus, we also have in Morocco a large industrial tissue that is also craving competitive, low costs and low carbon energy. So I think Today, with the challenges that we are facing, we really have to come up with that stream of investments in those bankable projects, including reinforcements of the grid today. So in that $1 to $2 billion of investments, I think we have at least half a billion dollars that goes into reinforcing the grid. And you are all welcome to help us win this challenge, because in addition to reinforcing the grid to give access to our social and economic tissue, to give them access to low-cost, low-carbon energy, we are also wanting to reinforce our interconnection and access to the international markets, and that convergence of energy and carbon markets between Africa, Europe, and I know that we have some of our players in the financial markets is quite key as well in winning this transition.
Sure.